Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. We're at the Arizona Property Development Series. And this is approximately part 3 or 4 of a long ongoing series of starting with nothing on this property vacant to getting to where we are now and what we're going to do next. Now that the manufactured home is set, we're going to be putting a front patio in. And all that base that I brought in initially in some of the previous parts, it had stockpiled it down in the lower area, a lot of excess. So I'm going to use that for the base for the new patio, the stairs, the walkway all the way around. It's going to be a stamped concrete. We're just going to do some seamless texture stamp, integral color mixed into the concrete, and we're going to seal it up. Single color, won't be a two-tone other than the dust and dirt that settles in the nooks and crannies. And we're going to be pouring this about 6 inch. We're going to do a 6-inch deep concrete on this pour. The nice thing about this pour is that we're in the wide open, so I can back a concrete truck in here, dump it right out of the chute. So I can go with the big rock also, which is going to be nice. A lot stronger, a lot less chance of cracking when you go with the particular system that I'm going to go with on this. 2x6 will be the Formwork. We got about 4-inch lift of road base in there. This ground, it's not that it's hard, it's just that it's got a lot of rock in it. So you got to use steel stakes here, and hopefully you can get a stake in between some of the rocks. Round stakes would be ideal for this terrain actually. Here's the epoxy we'll be using to dowel that retaining wall. You can see that retaining wall in an earlier episode of this series going in, and the entire base preparation for underneath the mobile home. We got a cordless DeWalt there, and we got the cordless vacuum as well. We do have power this particular house already, and we showed that in the previous part to this in part 1. The actual power going in we show, and the house, the two sides of the house sliding together. Because this retaining wall, I knew kind of going into this I was going to pour a patio off the top of this wall. So this patio that we're putting in is actually going to be my bond beam for the wall as well. And that's why I'm putting all these dowels in and epoxying, because the slab that I'm putting in is actually going to hold the top of this wall from ever moving. Now when we wrap around the house, we're at a lot lower elevation. As you can see, it's kind of like a split level setup here. You're at ground level on the front door, and then in the back of the house you can see we've got a set of steps coming down. So at some point coming from that front patio around to this walkway, we're going to have a long set of steps, concrete, to get down this lower elevation without having to go through the house. So that's vinyl siding you see on the side there. And we just laid some 1x4 against it. That way those 1x4s will just slide right out later on. And then we can still have access under the house at the same time. So we have the water hooked up. We didn't have water initially on this property either, but we got all that hooked up. We also, that's city water by the way, or county water in this case. We're going to be running well water for all the irrigation. We do have a well on site that I need to drop a new pump in, and a few other little odds and ends. Checking the elevation here to make sure we got a good depth here. And we're going to pour right off of that treated 2x6. It's a painted treated 2x6 on the lower part of the manufactured home. The installers put that in, and it worked out really nicely because that's, I can rod right off of the top of that for the concrete. And I'm going to go about 1.5% slope because we are doing stamps, so you need at least 1.5% to get drainage on a textured surface. Here's where those long set of steps are going. So we're going to go full width of the patio with the steps all the way across. And then I'm going to use some solar lighting on the step faces. It's one thing we don't have a shortage of is sun, especially since these steps are south facing. And I'll have the solars right on the face of this step. They're going to be lighting up and getting fully charged every day. Now, as we were out here getting this ready to pour, it took us about 2 days to get it 100% ready, get the forms, the base moved in, compacted. We're using the fiberglass rods, 3/8 rods on 2-foot centers. But when I got out here, I started calling around for concrete, and what I found out is that it's really booming out here, basically, because you can't really get concrete. You need about a 6-week notice to get on a concrete pour list. Although there is 3 batch plants out here, but you're looking at about a 6-week wait list to get concrete. Fortunately, when I made the call and placed the order, I ran into somebody that knew me, Joseph down there at S&S Materials. He's the general manager at the batch plant there. He was able to get me some concrete on fairly short notice, and it worked out really nice. So what I had to do is I had to pour at night, basically, on this particular. So I set up some lights. I strung some along the front of the house. I had truck lights. I had a few other light standards and stuff set up. It worked out really good, though. And you're going to see all of that, too. On these steps, I'm just using a 2x6, so it's 5.5 inch. When you account for these 2x6s, me slipping a hand float underneath them, because that's just makes it easier to strip, you're really getting 6 inches out of them, plus the slope on the step. So if you went nose to nose, you're probably really about 6.25. Also, I went a little bit wider on these steps. I just didn't do the standard 12 inch. I ended up going 14 inch. I think 14 is a little more comfortable than the 12 inchers. Now, if you go too big, then you got to take some long strides. So there's a, you know, a break point there somewhere. But because it's just me and my 2 sons getting all this ready, and we're going to be doing all the finishing and placement as well, I stage this in 2 pours. What we'll do first is we'll pour the top patio area, and that's about 2 loads up there because of the depth of it. It's actually, I think, 16 yards or so. And then we'll cold joint it off of that top step, and then the second day we'll go ahead and pour the walkway and these steps. That way we'll be able to handle it with minimal people. That little box you see there sticking up, that's actually my main water shutoff. I wanted to get a nicer box in there, and I figured, oh, that's going to be, I'll just pick up a nice clean brass easy access collar, you know, to reach down and, you know, flush it out top of concrete. But when I got out here, I realized they don't really have those out here. You've got to There's a few things that are really difficult to get, so planning is a big thing when you're working out in some of these areas where they just don't have the resources that you do in the big cities, you know. Going with the fiberglass, although you don't have to worry about rust out here. I mean, this is really dry, very little rain. Dobies, concrete dobies are a pretty common thing. Well, you can't find them out here, but you can find these plastic chairs, and actually, I really like them. They work beautiful for hitting the intersections of this fiberglass, and it also holds them together, so you could do it probably with less ties and just clip these things on. Now if I was pumping the concrete with a line hose, this wouldn't work because all these things would get crushed by the weight and the surge of the hose. Because we are tailgating, I can set everything up in the air and go ahead and pour, and there'll be a dead center concrete. But with the fiberglass, they could be a ½ inch below the surface, and it's not going to really matter because they don't rust. Or anywhere in the concrete, in any area. So here's the whole setup. I'm pretty much ready to pour, other than oiling the forms so I can strip them, reuse them for the foundation for the garage. So we've got a 2-car garage going up over here. We've got a huge workshop going up. All this lumber that you see here is going to go for the foundation and future pours on the concrete. So I'm going to oil the heck out of these and really try to get some use out of them, long lasting use over and over, and finish this entire series on this land development with the lumber that you see here. That 1x is just sitting against the siding. There's no stakes behind it. They're not even nailed. But the grade that we put in here was so perfect that I could just lay everything down on the dirt, and that was it. It was done. Anyway, thanks for watching that setups. Now, the next part is going to be the concrete pour. It's going to be a night pour, lights. We're going to go big time on this particular situation with the front end discharge truck. Those are the best too, by the way. I don't even know why they have rear discharge trucks. This doesn't make sense. Alright, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.